We discussed yesterday Trump's speech in honor of the 250th anniversary of the Navy, and it was off the rails in a lot of different ways. I'll remind you of the part that made headlines, and I was happy to see that this was a part that made headlines because it was one of the parts where the audience wasn't playing along with Trump. At some parts, to be honest, they were, but this part they weren't. And then we'll circle back on a claim he made about Osama bin Laden that you'll be shocked to find out wasn't accurate. But here was the headline: Trump's attempt to goad Navy into booing Obama met with awkward silence.
A man that everybody loves. He was my doctor in the White House, and I got to know him very well. He was also the doctor for Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? And he was a doctor for a man named Bush. And at a press conference,
So it was that part where he goes, "Have you heard of him?" Trying to get them to go, boo.
And he was a doctor for Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? And he was a doctor for a man named Bush.
So that part didn't go over as well as he'd like. A lot of the other parts, unfortunately, did. But now I want to talk about, okay. All right, you know what, Jaden, convince you. Let me play the rest of this clip because then we got to show you something.
And at a press conference, they asked him, who's in the best shape? Who's the healthiest? Who's the strongest? Who's the best physical specimen of the three? He said, that's easy. President Donald Trump. And I said, I love this guy.
See? And then they were hyped. But they did go silent during the part where he's trying to get them to boo Obama. So we came back to this topic for two reasons. One, I need to fact check his claim that he predicted Osama bin Laden and 9/11. And number two, we need to fact check his claim that he is in better physical shape than Barack Obama. Because yesterday I didn't do it. And many of you said, Luke, I don't even want to watch the show if you're not going to show us shirtless Barack Obama. So there is shirtless Barack Obama. And fact check, false. Trump, if you'd like to send the show a shirtless photo of you, send it to Jaden. Okay, so then we go to another notable part of this, which made headlines, which was him arguing that he knew something was up with Osama bin Laden. In his book, put a specific call to action that the government didn't follow. While you watch this, please do click the subscribe button. It is free, but it supports what we do and getting the message out. And after you hear this clip, we'll fact check what he says here.
Politically correct anymore. And history will never forget that it was the SEALs who stormed the compound at Osama bin Laden and put a bullet in his head. Remember that? And please remember, I wrote about Osama bin Laden.
Wait. This is everything you need to know about Trump. He's in front of brave service members, honoring 250 years of the U.S. Navy, and then is telling a specific story, and within 15 seconds of telling the story, he finds a way to make it about himself. The operation, yeah, all right, sure, the SEALs did it, whatever, but what about me? But then he's like, I guess he wasn't president when it happened, and he doesn't want to give Obama that. So then he just loops it back, as you're about to hear, to him with a master prediction.
The compound at Osama bin Laden and put a bullet in his head. Remember that? And please remember, I wrote about Osama bin Laden exactly 1 year ago, 1 year before he blew up the World Trade Center. And I said, you got to watch Osama bin Laden. And the fake news would never let me get away with that statement unless it was true. But I said 1 year before to Pete Hegseth. I said 1 year before. Where's Pete?
So already he says 1 year ago. Maybe that's a slip up because that doesn't make sense. A year ago? But then he goes 1 year before. But then he goes, I told Pete Hegseth. Now, of course, he's trying to say, I told Pete Hegseth this story about how 1 year before. But it sounds like now, did you know Pete Hegseth back that long ago?
In the book, I wrote, whatever the hell the title, I can't tell you. But I can tell you there's a page in there devoted to the fact that I saw somebody named Osama bin Laden, and I didn't like it, and you got to take care of him. They didn't do it. A year later, he blew up the World Trade Center. So we got to take a little credit because nobody else is going to give it to me. You know the old story? They don't give you credit, just take it yourself. And it was the U.S. Navy that dumped his wretched corpse off the decks of the Carl Vinson to sink into the dark abyss.
The jumping on and off of the teleprompter is always really disorienting.
You know, I do the weave.
Yeah, I guess so. You got to take credit. Okay. I saw this guy at Osama. I said, we got to look out for Osama. So then this guy Obama was running for president. I said, really suspicious. Obama, Osama, Obama, Osama. I don't like it. Okay. Speaking of Obama, he then brings... And then I move on. So that was the claim and my reaction. And I actually feel bad that yesterday I didn't just quickly find out that this was false. I mean, I assumed. Now we've gotten to where Trump tells so many lies that he'll tell one and I'll go like, yeah, lol. And then I won't even address it. But that's a big claim to make, that you said you got to get him because he's going to do 9/11 and then he did 9/11. I mean, whoa. And I didn't even, my brain has been melted by Trump. I'm just like, I make a joke about it and move on. What? So let's circle back to that. We got the Obama fact check. Now we have this one. Trump falsely claims again that his pre-9/11 book warned about Osama bin Laden. President Donald Trump likes to portray himself as a visionary, someone who sees important things before others. Trump has been claiming for the last decade that in a book he published the year before the terrorist attacks on September 11, 2001. And think about how sick it is to tell a lie about such a severe subject too. He warned the authorities that they needed to deal with Osama bin Laden. Trump's claim is false. His 2000 book contained no warning at all about bin Laden. His tale about the book's non-existent warning was conclusively debunked in 2015 and then again in 2019, but he repeated it. Now we can find the specific sections that he is thinking of. The book titled The America We Deserve did not tell anyone they needed to watch or take care of, which was his language, bin Laden. That wouldn't have been particularly prescient advice anyways, because Trump offered it in January 2000 and bin Laden was already a well-known threat to Americans at the time, but the book simply did not offer it. And what's fascinating is that the quote that he's thinking of actually kind of downplays bin Laden. Read this. And this was not written by him. It was a ghostwriter, but he's trying to take credit for it. So let's read it, imagining it being in his voice. Instead of one looming crisis hanging over us, we face a bewildering series of small crises, flashpoints, standoffs, and hot spots. You think Trump ever wrote that? We're not playing the chess game to end all chess games anymore. We're playing tournament chess, one master against many rivals. One day, we're all assured that Iraq is under control. The UN inspectors have done their work. Everything's fine, not to worry. The next day, the bombing begins. One day, we're told that a shadowy figure with no fixed address named Osama bin Laden is public enemy number one, and U.S. jet fighters lay waste to his camp in Afghanistan. He escapes back under a rock, and a few news cycles later, it's on to a new enemy and a new crisis. So the way he's wording that is kind of like, oh, Osama, Shmama. Who even cares? That's just always a media fixture. That is clearly not any advice to anyone about bin Laden, and it contains an acknowledgement that bin Laden had already been targeted by then President Bill Clinton. In a separate section of the book, Trump did predict that the U.S. would be hit by major terror attacks, writing, and this is him specifically, or his ghostwriter specifically acknowledging what analysts were already warning of. I really am convinced we're in danger of a sort of terrorist attacks that will make the 1993 bombing of the Trade Center look like kids playing with firecrackers. No sensible analyst rejects this possibility, and plenty of them, like me, are not wondering if, but when it will happen. Trump did not predict that bin Laden or anyone else in particular would be responsible for these future attacks, and Trump acknowledged it was a widespread belief among analysts that major attacks would occur, not a special insight of his own. So when he's talking about bin Laden, he's saying they're always bringing up this guy Osama, and I don't get it. And then whenever he's actually talking about future terror attacks, he's citing what was a concern and not naming. And he never did. He say, you got to take care of that guy. Which, yeah, I mean, that would have been a good, important prediction, and bad that people didn't listen to Trump on that if he had, but he hadn't. It's funny. It says it's understandable if Trump doesn't remember what was put in a book that was ghostwritten by somebody else. But that doesn't excuse a decade of boasting about how the book supposedly includes something it actually doesn't. So many of you, I'm sure, heard him say that and just assumed that he was lying. Because whenever he says, this is definitely not a lie, it's probably a lie. Like, he made that, whenever he goes, the media would give me hell if it ends up still being fact checked by said media that he said wasn't going to give him a hard time because it was going to be so true. But that one indeed was not accurate, shockingly.